I was 17 when my parents left me alone for a single night while they drove out to help my uncle move. It was supposed to be simple. They'd leave Saturday afternoon and be back by late Sunday morning. I'd had the house to myself during the day plenty of times, but never overnight. I told them I'd be fine. I even joked that I was looking forward to it. The house felt normal at first. I ordered pizza, watched movies, and stayed up later than I was supposed to. Around midnight, I locked the doors, checked the windows like my mom always did, and went upstairs. Our house had this long hallway where every step made the floor creak. You couldn't walk down it without announcing yourself. I was half asleep when I heard one of those creaks. My eyes opened instantly. I stared at the ceiling, listening. Nothing. I told myself it was the house settling. Old houses make noises. I rolled over and closed my eyes again. Another creak. Closer this time. I sat up in bed. The sound came from the hallway. Someone was walking slowly, carefully placing their weight between the boards. Whoever it was knew the floor creaked and was trying to avoid it. That realization sent this cold wave through my chest. I grabbed my phone and checked the time. 1:37 a.m. I texted my parents asking if they forgot something and came back. No reply. I slid out of bed and locked my door as quietly as I could. The footsteps stopped immediately. I stood there holding the doorknob, barely breathing. A few seconds later, my door handle moved. Not violently, just a gentle test. A slow push down and release. I stepped back like the handle was hot. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure whoever was outside could hear it. Then came a soft knock. 3 taps. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My throat felt glued shut. My phone buzzed in my hand and I nearly screamed. It was a text from an unknown number. No contact name. Just a message. I know you're awake. I stared at it, convinced it had to be a prank. Another text came immediately. Open the door. The doorknob turned again, harder this time. The lock clicked, but held. I backed into the corner of my room and dialed 911 with shaking fingers. I whispered to the dispatcher that someone was outside my bedroom. She told me officers were on the way and to stay hidden. While I was on the phone, my phone buzzed again. Why are you calling someone? I felt my stomach drop. He could hear me. That meant he was still right outside the door, watching the light under it, listening to every breath. The dispatcher kept asking what was happening, and I whispered that he was texting me. The knocking started again, louder now. Not polite taps, angry pounding. The door shook in its frame. He slammed into it once, twice. The wood cracked near the lock. I started crying, and the dispatcher told me to stay with her. Then everything went quiet. No footsteps, no breathing, nothing. I didn't move. I didn't even wipe my eyes. I just stared at the door, waiting for it to explode inward. A full minute passed, then another. My phone buzzed one last time. Wrong room. The footsteps sprinted down the hallway. I heard my parents' bedroom door fly open. Drawers slammed, closet doors banged. He was tearing through their room. I realized he thought I was sleeping in there. I don't know if that saved me or made it worse. Sirens wailed outside, sudden and deafening. The noise downstairs turned frantic. Heavy footsteps thundered down the stairs. A door crashed open. By the time the police entered, he was gone. The officers searched the house and found the back kitchen window shattered quietly, glass laid down on a towel. Whoever he was had planned it. He didn't just wander in. He came prepared. They asked about the texts. I showed them my phone. The number didn't exist anymore. Not disconnected, not blocked. The message thread was just empty. The officer stood there refreshing my screen like it might reappear. He said sometimes adrenaline messes with memory, that I probably imagined the texts, but I didn't imagine the cracked door frame. I didn't imagine the shattered window. And I didn't imagine the muddy footprints leading straight to my parents' bedroom. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I sat in the living room with all the lights on until my parents came home. We installed cameras and an alarm system the next week. Nothing like that ever happened again. But sometimes I wake up to my phone vibrating on the nightstand. I grab it, heart racing, convinced I'll see that number again. The screen is always blank. And for a split second, I swear I can hear careful footsteps in the hallway, trying not to creak. I was 16 the first time my parents trusted me to stay home alone for an entire week. They were flying overseas to visit family and didn't want me missing school. My older cousin was supposed to check in on me, but he worked nights, so realistically, I was alone after sunset. I pretended I loved the freedom. By the third night, the silence in the house started to feel wrong. We lived at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac. No street traffic, no neighbors walking past. After dark, it felt like the world stopped right at our driveway. Around 11 p.m., I was in the kitchen getting a drink when I heard a knock at the front door. It wasn't loud, just 3 calm knocks. I froze with the fridge open. Nobody ever came to our house that late. I turned off the kitchen light and walked slowly to the hallway where I could see the door, but stay hidden. The porch light was on. Through the frosted glass, I could see the shape of someone standing there. They knocked again. Same rhythm. I didn't move. My phone was in my pocket, and I was already thinking about calling my cousin when the person tried the doorknob. A slow twist. Then another. They weren't panicking or rushing. They were patient. I backed away and locked the deadbolt, even though it was already locked. The click sounded thunderous in the quiet house. The figure outside stopped moving. We stayed like that for maybe 30 seconds. Then I heard footsteps, but not walking away. They moved to the side of the house. My stomach dropped. I ran upstairs and went straight to my parents' room because it overlooked the driveway. I crawled to the window and peeked through the blinds. A man was walking along the side of the house with a flashlight pointed at the ground, like he didn't want the beam seen. He disappeared behind the backyard fence. I called my cousin. No answer. I called 911. While I whispered to the dispatcher, I heard the back gate creak open. The dispatcher told me officers were on the way and asked where I was. I said upstairs. She told me to stay put. I heard the back door handle jiggle. Then the sound of glass lightly tapping, not shattering, testing, like he was pressing on the window to see if it would give. I slid into my parents' closet and pulled the door almost shut, leaving a crack so I could see the bedroom. I could hear him moving around downstairs, opening and closing things, cabinets, drawers. He wasn't sneaking anymore. He was exploring. The dispatcher kept talking to me, but her voice felt far away. Every noise from downstairs was sharp and clear. At one point, I heard the fridge open. I heard him walking through the kitchen, like he lived there. Then the footsteps started up the stairs, slow, unhurried. Each step creaked. He wasn't trying to be quiet anymore. I covered my mouth to stop myself from breathing too loud. The footsteps reached the top and stopped. I could see the shadow of his legs stretch into my parents' room as he stepped inside. He stood there for a moment, just looking around. Then he walked to the closet. Every instinct in my body screamed to run, but there was nowhere to go. The closet door moved an inch as he touched it. I thought it was over. I thought he'd rip it open, and that would be it. His phone rang. The sound exploded in the silence. A normal ringtone, casual. He stepped away from the closet and answered it in a whisper I couldn't understand. He sounded annoyed. After a few seconds, he said, "Clear as day. I'm inside. I told you I'd call back." Inside. He hung up and walked out of the room. I heard him open the next bedroom door, then another. He was searching the house like he expected someone else to be there. Sirens cut through the air outside. He reacted instantly. The footsteps sprinted back across the hall and thundered down the stairs. I heard the back door slam. The dispatcher said officers were arriving and told me to stay where I was until they came up. When police searched the house, they found the back window pried open and muddy footprints everywhere. They swept the neighborhood but didn't catch him. One officer asked if anything was missing. Nothing was. That's what unsettled them. He hadn't taken electronics. He hadn't grabbed money. He hadn't even opened the front door to leave easily. He came in, walked the house, and left the moment police arrived. The officer said it didn't look like burglary. It looked like he was checking if the house was empty, or who was inside. My parents flew home early the next day. We added cameras and reinforced the windows. I never stayed alone again. Sometimes I think about how close he was to opening that closet door. How the only reason he didn't was a phone call that lasted maybe 5 seconds, and I still wonder who he was talking to when he said he was already inside. I was 14 when my parents left me home alone for what was supposed to be a quick overnight trip. They were driving 2 hours away for a wedding and didn't want me missing school the next day. My grandma was supposed to stay with me, but she got sick that afternoon and canceled. My parents asked if I'd be okay by myself. I said yes immediately. I didn't want to look like a kid. They left around 5 p.m. The house felt exciting at first. I ordered food, played games in the living room, and kept all the lights on. By 10:30, I got tired and went upstairs. Before bed, I double-checked the locks like my mom always did. Front door locked, back door locked, windows shut. I remember specifically checking the sliding glass door in the kitchen. I pulled it twice to make sure. I woke up to the sound of voices. At first, I thought my parents came home early and had the TV on. I rolled over and checked my phone. 2:12 a.m. The voices were faint, but definitely inside the house. A man and a woman talking quietly, like they didn't want to wake anyone. My entire body went cold. I slid out of bed and crept to my door. The hallway was dark. I opened it just enough to peek out. I could hear them more clearly now. They were downstairs in the kitchen. I couldn't make out words, just murmuring and the soft clink of something being set on the counter. Someone laughed. It was casual, comfortable, like they belonged there. I backed into my room and locked the door. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone dialing 911. I whispered to the dispatcher that there were people in my house. She told me officers were on the way and asked where I was. I said upstairs bedroom, door locked. While I was on the phone, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Slow, careful. The dispatcher told me to stay quiet. The steps reached the top and stopped. I could see shadows moving under my door, 2 sets of feet. They were right outside. The woman whispered, "This one." My doorknob turned. I clamped my hand over my mouth to stop from making a sound. The knob rattled softly, testing the lock. Then the man spoke, barely above a breath. "I know you're in there." I felt my chest tighten so hard it hurt. The dispatcher kept asking what was happening. I whispered that they were outside my door. She told me officers were pulling onto my street. The man knocked once. A single, heavy thud. "You don't have to be scared," he said calmly. "We just want to talk." The woman giggled. I don't know why that sound scared me more than anything else. It was playful, like this was a game to her. They stood there for what felt like forever. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Then the woman said, "They're calling someone." The man sighed. "We're out of time." The footsteps retreated quickly down the hall. I heard them rush down the stairs. A second later, the sliding glass door slammed open and shut. Sirens filled the air. Police searched the house and the backyard. They found the sliding door open with mud tracked across the kitchen floor. No forced entry. The lock had been lifted cleanly with something thin. The officers said whoever did it knew exactly how to open that type of door. Here's the part that still messes with me. On the kitchen counter next to the sink were 2 glasses. They had poured themselves water. The officers dusted them for prints, but nothing ever came of it. My parents came home before sunrise. We replaced the door the next week and installed an alarm system. Nothing like that ever happened again. But sometimes when I get up in the middle of the night to get a drink, I see those glasses in my head. 2 strangers standing in my kitchen in the dark, whispering, laughing, helping themselves to water like guests who arrived too early. And I think about how close they were to opening my door. I was 16 when my parents left me alone for 3 nights while they went to visit my grandfather in the hospital. He lived 5 hours away, and they didn't want to pull me out of school. My mom was nervous about leaving me, but I'd stayed home alone before during the day, and nothing ever happened. We had a quiet neighborhood. Nothing ever happened there. That's what everyone always said. The first night was normal. I locked the doors, watched TV too late, and slept with my phone on loud just in case. The second night is when things started. I got home from school around 4 p.m. and immediately noticed the front door was unlocked. I stood there staring at it for a full 10 seconds, trying to convince myself I forgot to lock it that morning. I replayed my routine in my head. Backpack, shoes off, locked door. I always locked the door. My parents drilled it into me. I stepped inside slowly and called out, "Hello?" No answer. The house looked untouched. Nothing knocked over, nothing missing. But the air felt different. Heavy, like walking into a room where someone was just arguing. I checked every room with my heart pounding. Closets, bathrooms, underbeds. The house was empty. I told myself I was being dramatic. Maybe I really did forget to lock it. That night around 11:45, I was upstairs in my room when I heard the front door open. I didn't hear footsteps approach it. I didn't hear a car. Just the unmistakable click of the latch and the slow creak of the door swinging inward. I sat up in bed and listened. The door closed gently, then silence. I grabbed my phone and texted my parents. "Are you home?" No response. I got out of bed and locked my door. My hands were already shaking. I crouched beside it and listened as hard as I could. A minute passed. Then I heard it. A single footstep downstairs. Then another. Whoever was inside wasn't sneaking. They were walking normally. Calm. Like they'd done this before. The footsteps moved through the living room. Into the kitchen. Cabinets opened, closed. A drawer slid out and slammed back in. I called 911 and whispered that someone was in my house. The dispatcher told me officers were on the way and asked if I could hide. I slid into my closet and pulled the door almost shut. Through the crack, I could see my bedroom door. I held my phone against my chest so the light wouldn't show. The footsteps started up the stairs. Each step creaked loudly. There was no rush, no panic. Whoever this was knew I was home. They weren't trying to hide it anymore. The steps stopped outside my door. My doorknob turned slowly. The lock held. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then I heard breathing, right outside the door, close enough that I could hear the air moving in and out of their nose. A man's voice spoke softly. "You forgot the downstairs window." My blood turned to ice. I hadn't checked the downstairs window. The dispatcher was asking what was happening, and I couldn't answer. I was frozen. The man tapped the door lightly with his finger, a slow rhythm. Patient. "You're safe in there," he said calmly. "I'm not here for you." That somehow made it worse. The footsteps moved away. He walked into the bathroom. I heard the sink turn on, water running, then the toilet flush. He was using our bathroom like he lived there. Sirens wailed in the distance. The water shut off instantly. The footsteps exploded down the hallway and thundered down the stairs. I heard the front door slam open and crash shut. By the time police arrived, he was gone. They searched the house and found the kitchen window open with the screen removed cleanly and set on the ground. No broken glass, no mess. The officer said whoever did it was experienced. He'd done this before. Here's what they didn't find. Nothing was stolen. Not money, not electronics, not jewelry. He walked through the house, used the bathroom, came upstairs, and left. The officer kept repeating that part like it bothered him. Most burglars grab something, anything. This guy didn't touch a single thing, except one. On the bathroom mirror upstairs, written in steam that was still fading when the officers saw it, was a single word. Almost. They photographed it before it disappeared. My parents came home at 3 o'clock in the morning. My mom cried when she saw the broken window. We installed alarms, cameras, reinforced locks. We never found out who he was. But every once in a while, I'll walk into a room and feel that same heavy air I felt when I came home that day, like someone just left. And I still check the downstairs window every night before bed. Twice. Because I don't know what he meant by almost, and I don't want to find out.